spirits align again today on this Monday. For this radio host at 46 years old, I never saw the Grateful Dead or Jerry Garcia band, and I probably never would have wanted to see them in the 90s. But I will say that I live and die with live Grateful Dead, especially from the early 1980s, which gets a really, really bad rap in a lot of ways. And maybe it's justified, maybe it's not. But I can only tell you that I don't want to say introduction, but my love of this time period and the guys in the band came from audience recordings. And there are tons of audience recordings out there, but very few, if any, have ever come close to my guests. His work at the most special venues on the West Coast, the North Bay area, are seminal audience recordings that provide a lot of separation in a very, pardon the pun, muddy time. The soundboards from the early 80s are incredibly oversaturated, and I'm not sure why that was the case. The taper section didn't materialize till Berkeley Community Theater in 84, and my guest had an opportunity in the early 80s to incubate front of board in front of the most burning band. As far as I'm concerned, all of those guys became better musicians in the early 80s. The drug use was a problem. Jerry's voice was a problem. He was physically suffering. But nothing comes close to the work that my guest did at Frost, at the Greek Theater, and so many more places. And I am forever indebted to him to be able to pass on that gold, that audio gold to my daughters and future generations. Rango, Keshavan, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. That's nice introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, it is the truth, man. And I wanted to ask you, when did I just have to believe that I started my show 14 years ago, and I listened back to interviews I did with some titanic jazz musicians, my elders like Richard Davis and Jack DeJohnette, and it's sort of cringeworthy. I know what I want to say, but I'm not confident enough to say it. But ultimately, they helped me find my voice, and I'm just kind of hoping you could talk to the audience about some of the early Rango recording attempts that you did prior to essentially coming on the scene in San Diego '82.
Well, that was pretty much it. That was my first recording.
Are you kidding me? That was your maiden voyage?
Yeah. So what happened was I was living back east, right? So, but then I ended up getting a job. I just graduated college and whatnot, and this was like a couple years after. And saw a bunch of dead. My first show was in 1980, May 11th, 1980. Great show.
Hartford.
Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine. Beautiful. Were
Yeah.
you up at University of Maine, or where were you at?
No, I was ending my days at WPI. I went to college at WPI, so I was pretty much done with it. And a group of my friends, we went up there and saw that, and then
Fascinating.
subsequently, I saw a few more shows on the East Coast. Basically Providence and Lewiston in 1980, and then Providence and Hartford in 81. I never really toured with the band, I never did that, but I always went whenever they came locally. So then I had an opportunity to move out west, and I always wanted to, but so ended up taking a job in Los Angeles area, and 2 days after I landed, my college roommate at the time, Dennis, he before when we were in college, and he became my roommate during my stay in LA. Uh, Bought us tickets for the San Diego show, and meanwhile, I bought a D5. A friend of mine, my current brother-in-law and I think we both bought a D5 together, and we both did separately, but at the same time, we kind of talked each other into it, and so I just went. Yeah, I landed in LA, went down to Sunset Strip, and there was this audio guitar place or something there, music store, and walked in there and bought these. I didn't have a lot of money, so bought these. I think the total cost was $50 for the two mics, for the Sony mics,
Oh
and
my
didn't
God.
expect it to be anything amazing, right? So didn't really expect that tape to become that I was going to record a show and didn't expect to be anything amazing. So we get to San Diego, and we had seats way in the back of the auditorium. It's a small place, so we had seats way in the back. But then they were selling tickets right then and there for tickets like way up front, like 6 row center, basically. So we went and bought those tickets and sold our tickets uh, that we already had because the place was sold out, and it was quite a mad scene.
I mean, I
Um,
cannot, but you're blowing. Wait, hold on a second. How much were those 6 row center tickets?
there were, I mean, God's sakes, back then,
$15, $20?
not even. I'm sure
I
less
mean,
than
that
10.
is the most. Okay, continue. It was a madhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, look up the ticket price for Lewiston, Maine, for instance. I mean, it's under $10, and you get all these great acts there,
Oh,
right? So
absolutely.
things
Absolutely.
things have changed so much; it's ridiculous. But anyway, so we get in, and I get caught bringing my decks, my deck in. I hadn't really perfected my technique
Right. The
yet,
operation.
and
I did. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
so I get caught bringing the deck in, and they go to the desk at the front and just give it to them. And meanwhile, my friend Dennis, he's looking around. He goes, "Nobody's looking. Just come on, let's go." And we went, and the two of us stood there. Had Each of us had a microphone stuck on our hat. We taped it to our hat, and I had my deck hanging from my shoulder. It was a hilarious scene. I mean, really, truly hilarious. And nobody kicked us out. I mean, there was actually one of the nights there was actually a bouncer beating the crap out of this guy. I don't know for what reason. They were just struggling with him and pulling him out of there. He must have done something. And I'm standing there with with all this stuff, and nobody's saying a darn thing. And we get so I thought the tape was going to stink, because it's junky microphone. Sony. Who the heck has heard of the Sony? We've all heard of all the Sennheisers and AKGs and all that, but who's ever heard of this microphone? And so I made some comments into the microphone with it. You can hear it on one of the tapes. And I think I said at a particular moment after Weir did something going into drums, I just said that was outrageous or something like that. Remember, I'm also a 20-something-year-old kid at the time. Um, so then, um, but I wasn't tripping. So,
Right.
I never did whenever I tape because if I did that, I would have put all my equipment. I have done it before.
Rango,
It's true.
honestly, man, honestly, dude, I am my favorite, seriously, my favorite audience recordings are ones you did, and I would not have wanted to have been on any substances because I maybe wouldn't have realized if it was real or not. I mean,
Right,
it was
right.
so good.
Yeah. So anyway, we tape the show, the first show, 19th and February 19th, and we go back to the hotel, and I'm listening to my headphones, go, man, these sound really good. And so next night I tried to be a little less quiet, but probably wasn't totally. But that was my first experience taping.
I want to
And
ask you a
then
question. I want to ask you a question because those,
yeah,
again, that for a maiden voyage, those are great tapes. Although I've struggled because you're the only cat, and again, I want to be clear. Like, I mean, there's so many things in my head. First of all, in San Diego, it was hostile territory. You have a lot of military down there. It's very conservative. I think like in 1980, Weir and Hart got arrested, and Bill Walton had to bail him out of jail, and then they crashed at his house. I mean, San Diego was never like overly hospitable to that kind of crowd.
yeah, I'm
And
sure.
like, but those tapes, something occurred along the way in '82 because you know, Phil had not gotten the Alembic yet. He was still playing his older, or at least a four string. And
Right.
a lot of times, there's no definition or punch coming from Phil the way you might even hear on a soundboard from the '70s. And in like '80, '81, those New England shows, I mean, they're played very well, but there's a very thin sound to them. And nothing against Jim Wise and all these guys, brilliant freaking tapers. Okay, but
Yeah, of
sort of
course.
a thin, thin sound. So,
Hmm.
and I'm curious about like you're the only one that was able to get definition on Phil's notes in '82. So what did you do? Did you go to the Greek after that, or when? I mean, how did you?
Well,
And
so
also,
so
and you know, and I just want to be clear,
I
Dan.
don't think we were really, the thing is, I don't think I was ever really that tuned into all that stuff, to be quite frank.
That's probably why it's so brilliant. Yeah.
A lot of it was serendipity, I think.
Mhm.
But I think what worked for these microphones, and that's why I kind of stopped taping once the taper section came into place, more or less, is that these microphones really work good when you're in front of the board, and they definitely really capture the sound real well when you're when you're within the first when you're in front of the board and you're probably in the fill zone basically, right?
Oh my
So
God. I mean,
you
it's
know
I want to be clear how much this is so important. I love the serendipity because my greatest interviews were ones that, you know, people would, you just have to borrow from that Socratic method that you must know what you don't know. But, you know, it's like, can I, because when I go to shows now, and I'm not going to see stadium shows or the Greek, or, you know, but I mean, I get in front of the speakers to get the natural ambient sound of the stage. How much of the the ambient natural sound were you picking up, do you think?
um that's yeah, probably a lot of
I
I
think that
think
that's the magic of it because synthetically, I mean, Dan Healy said that the Greek theater in Berkeley was a nightmare to
yeah
record in, and you
I think
crushed those shows, dude.
I think we were picking up more of the sound monitors, quite frankly.
Yeah.
That's my theory. Especially like at the San Diego show, the Frost show, we were like way up front for the 1010, 10 1082
Oh
shows too.
my! So you were getting
So
monitors. I want you to talk about that brightness because I think that's your theory, and I think you're. I listened back to playing Crazy Fingers today, and I remember playing that for my parents back around 2000 when I was just sort of poking around with the early '80s Dead and obsessing over that playing Crazy Fingers because it literally sounds like the greatest soundboard in the world. It's
well
not.
yeah, well, that I mean those tapes, those are my favorite. That was my favorite show ever attended.
Oh.
Because there was so much. I think I wrote something about it and you might have read it on Facebook, but uh
Can you talk to the audience about? I mean, this to me is like you were getting monitor pickup from the nastiest band in the world before, because dude, there are so many audience recordings everywhere, and most of them there's just no definite. I just am. It's just
well, I mean, I think that's the problem when they did the when they got the taper section is that everybody had to, unless you were sneaking in and risking to be kicked out, which has happened to a few of my friends. But um,
yeah.
if most of the tapes were made behind the soundboard, and there you're getting the hall more, right, and you're getting the you're getting the
Synthetic sound. You're getting synthetic
speakers,
sound. Yeah, it's synthetic.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're up there, you're picking up, I think, a mix. You're obviously picking up from the speakers, but you're also picking up from the stage monitors coming at you. And this again, I wasn't really thinking about that stuff back then, right?
I don't care
Uh,
that you. I love that you weren't thinking about that because
I
this is
was
like
just
the most beautiful stuff ever, dude.
and my brother-in-law, who I mentioned, Mike, he's a big part of this. The two of us, uh, were and I became a software guy. He still is a electrical
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah, I did.
So we were, kind of knowledgeable about this stuff a bit, enough to be a little dangerous, right? So, but we weren't really saying, okay, well, we have to be right there. No, we weren't. We just looked, we eyeballed it, said, oh, well, this is a great place, like the Frost, right? That's, we just said, okay, this looks like a really great place. We just, put us up there, and it just, um, just
Well, no, I want to be clear about something. So you missed you were doing working, you know, keeping your day job during the Greek '82 shows, or were you there?
I didn't make the 82 shows. No, I
Dude,
was,
do you realize that the Greek '81 amazing shows, like incredible performance by the band,
yeah.
not good recordings. 82, great performance. Soundboards are okay, but muddy and second or third gen, not great. Then all of a sudden, Rango and brother-in-law come along in 83. You changed my life in 83. That Saturday night show, I think the 514 show is arguably it just sneaks by the 1010 show. And again, I'm just all I listen to is the early 80s. And so it's like that 83 show, not to mention it was the most burning show, but there was something beyond really beyond description, man. And I just so you the first time out in San Diego, you're wearing the mics on your ball caps.
Right.
Did that evolve in
Yeah,
by
eventually evolved into so. But the next set of shows I remember taping, and I'm pretty sure those were the next set of shows were the Ventura '82 shows. And by that time, I had
Ventura? Wow.
and those aren't actually out there because they're actually better tapes, and so Charlie never took my tapes for those. But um,
You think they're better than anything out there?
yeah, because no, mine aren't that great because I
Yeah.
was actually standing a little further back, and I got a lot of wind noise and all that. But
Okay.
I did. Wasn't the 82? No. No, it was at the Frost. I'm sorry. The Frost 82 was the first shows we ended up bringing these basically what we brought in was they used to allow you to bring in your camera at the time. So we brought a tripod in with us, and then we just stuck the microphones on a tripod. We
Wow.
had to sneak in our decks and everything, but we brought the tripod, and they were fine because we had a camera with us. And yeah, and Mike actually takes some great pictures. He's got a really great website with a lot of really, really good pictures that he's taken. He
Oh
took
my
pictures
God, dude. Are
for
you kidding
relics.
me? Are you kidding me?
I'll send you a link, but
Yeah.
I don't think he took pictures at this show, but
No,
later
I'm
on
sorry. You
he,
know, I'm geeking out here, Rango. I'm sorry, but I just the shows you're
yeah.
talking about, and you can claim that there's wind problems. I actually don't know. I feel like
Well, Ventura was very windy. That the '82
no. The
especially.
Ventura show was 83 July,
Oh,
and those
that one by then I had it down with the tripod and everything, and that was from the Frost on it was all we used tripods and we're able to just I made this makeshift. I wish I had kept all that stuff. I didn't, but through the years and everything. But I made a makeshift mic stand and just stuck in the top of the tripod, and it was perfect. It worked really great.
how
Um,
high up? How high up?
it only went up about 7 feet. It didn't go up super high, but just above head level.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
good enough. You got audience noise. I mean, you hear like 51383 is a great example. No, 51583 is a great example. Um, and I'd like to get back to 51483
No. We're
after I
gonna
finish
use.
this.
I just want to say
But
730 83 is the greatest Rango show.
73183, I never liked that show to
No,
be
no,
honest.
730, 730.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard that even. I haven't heard that for
Dude,
ages.
that is the most. First of all, there's just one sequence where the
Huh.
band is playing primordial stuff, and it just sounds. There is wind, but it's a Rango
Yeah.
special. I do
I
want
got to listen to that again. I haven't heard that one for a long time, but 73183, I hadn't heard it for I don't know how many years. And then one day I was commuting to work. I was back east commuting to work, and um, I just at that time we had tapes, right? So I just stuck. I never played my master tapes, by the way. So
right.
it was a copy of my tape, and I just stuck it in my car, and it blew my mind. I mean, from there on in, I just love that show. That from Hell in a Bucket, Scarlet Fire.
Dude, it sounds well. Also, the thing about that show that people don't talk about is Jerry was bit by some insect on his foot or something before the
Yeah.
second set, and he could barely. I mean, you sang "Happy Birthday"
Wow.
to him before.
Okay.
The one question, so but that Scarlet Fire, Helena Bucket into Scarlet Fire is insane.
It,
I do want to ask you. This is so important because you were right at this erogenous point. San Diego, February, right? Rango's just starting out on the maiden voyage. Then all of a sudden, you reappear Ventura. Phil and Brent switch sides on stage.
Ventura '82.
That started in Duke in April. So how did you
Okay.
account? I mean, I'm sure you weren't necessarily aware or you
I
weren't?
mean, I obviously would be aware of that
Yeah.
they'd switched sides, but I probably didn't care. I never really paid attention to the sound about it. Like that, right? I was there to enjoy the show too, and I wasn't really picking up like that. But
Oh man, this is so sad.
but yeah, I'm sure I was aware about that. But just getting back to 51483
Sure,
for a minute,
sure,
okay? The second
sure.
set. So getting back to what I was saying about 51583, there you can hear some audience noise in the space as they're coming. These guys are talking about their party right in front of us. And finally one of my friends taps me on my shoulder and goes, shush, and then they quieted down. With Flora Purim and Airto doing their thing.
Oh yeah.
You just didn't want any noise, geez. But most of the time, crowd noise never bugged me. But and back then people didn't talk like they do now, right? So if you listen to a great example is my tape of Marin 33184, which is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
And you can hear during the space pin drop silence, and it's a small auditorium. And I was in the second row actually during that taping of that show, and the band didn't give a shit. They saw me obviously, and they never said anything to me. But
Wait,
which
hold
is
on. No, no, I
really
want to say the same thing. The same thing about a mic drop silence. The morning dew on 514, 515.
so 514 listen to it someday with these thoughts in your head.
Yeah,
um Jerry wants to do Uncle John's band, so they're coming out of
yeah.
I think playing the band or China Doll. It goes playing the band China Doll, right?
Right. That's
and
exactly right.
and
Yeah.
somewhere in there there's this notes of Uncle John's band, and
Wow.
I think Weir comes
Wow.
over and says something. This is my theory. Okay, this is what I remember. And then they go into the drum space, and they come back out into the wheel. And, if my wife was here, she'd be laughing her head off that I remember all this stuff. But anyway,
It's freaking amazing, dude. This is dude. You're gonna take
well,
this. Yeah. Go ahead.
this is the ridiculous thing about being a deadhead, right? So anyways, and she poor lady had no idea, but
No, she's
but
all right. Yeah.
but she loves
Good.
it.
Yeah.
Coming out of the wheel and then um, you can hear Jerry. I think they're coming out of no, yeah, they're coming out of the wheel,
Yeah.
and you can hear again a couple of strums of Uncle John's band, and and you can kind of feel like that's what's going to happen next. And then Bob comes in, whispers something in Jerry's ear, and so then Jerry just backs away and starts blasting back into the playing the band reprise. And as soon as that ends, it's like with a vengeance. Jerry hits the morning dew notes, and
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps, man. I
and so
know.
so that was an incredible. I mean it
Holy
those
shit.
those shows I consider in my top five, the Frost and the Greek. I think the band. Then I also consider the Greek shows my born again shows, because I was pretty much ready to give up on them after. So the Frost, I feel, was like a climax of the band. They just hit all the 82 shows up to that point are just great, and the Frosts were just incredible. And then they fell off a cliff. And the New Year's Eve shows weren't, which I went to, and
Oakland were train wreck shows.
they weren't that great, right? And
No, they
then
were
and
all
then
drugged out, man. Etta James, Tower of Power and shit.
and then the early '83 shows that I saw, which
Dreadful, dude.
was
Phoenix, Vegas, dreadful.
Tempe, yeah, Tempe, Vegas, Irvine, were worse. So my brother-in-law he was living up here by now. He wasn't my brother-in-law then. He was my college roommate, really
Right.
good friend. But he's calling me up saying, "You're gonna come to the Greek?" And I said, "Oh God, I don't know if I want to see them again." And then he goes, "No, you got to come. You got to come." And thank God I did, right? Because those are just great
Rango,
shows.
Rango, I'm 46, dude. I was 5 years old. That show, I was playing that analog cassette, multi-generation Rango cassette in like 97, 98. The wheel, space, wheel, you're right, playing reprise, and then
Right.
the do,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like nobody. And that's the thing. There's so much, there. I remember the great studio guitar player David Spinoza told me in the mid 70s he started hearing people saying, Oh yeah, this is good music to talk over. Not necessarily Grateful Dead, but just that's the perception that changed. And now it's like people just feel like part of the musical uh performance is like talking through the performance. And back then, no iPhones, no distractions.
Right.
Yeah, you get people blathering about it, but people were there for a spiritual healing experience.
Yes,
And it sounds like
absolutely.
when he hits that climax in Morning Dew at the end.
Yeah.
It was you were that was baptism right there.
Yeah. Well, Jerry was on fire that show, those shows, and there he was there to jam and play. And if you knew it from the first note, from the Friday show. You just knew that the band was there to play, and they're all grinning, and
Dude, the
Friday was a
stranger on Saturday. I mean, the whole 5:15 is like really cool because obviously Aerto and Flora and and even your recording, it just I mean they've been jaded a little bit. I will say the Let It Grow from 513 is phenomenal. But there's something about five. Oh, then they do the classic Bobby's like on this day 1 week ago was Billy Kreutzmann's birthday, and like
right,
the
right.
whole
Yeah, they
band
did that.
explode. I mean, the whole
Right,
thing
right.
is like
That was fun.
it feels like it has a 70s vibe to it, man.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you're
even
telling
I mean, all three of those shows are great. There was definitely magic happening that those three
Oh my
days.
God. So
Yeah.
you were totally reborn again. Also, I
Yeah.
want to go back to this because I really need to know. It's one thing that's always been interesting for me. Not that you had unlimited time, but did you tape in '82 you talked about that magic. One thing that was magical about '82 was that Bobby and the Midnights had just this all-star band, and so Jerry and John inserted Billy in the Jerry band. They went on this burning summer tour, and it was just so electric and so hot. And they played a ton of shows in the Bay Area. Did you tape Jerry Garcia band shows?
Not really. No. I tried taping one show.
Which one?
Um, it was probably around that time frame. But it didn't come out good at all. It was kind of in a club because it was in this place in Reseda down in LA.
Oh
It
my
was small.
God! You went. It was. What was it called? The Country Club or something?
Yeah, the country club. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God, you cannot
yeah.
believe.
And
Yeah, not a great place to tape, probably.
well, and I actually got kicked out of a show somewhere around that time period for taping a Bobby and Friends show in the Sunset Strip. There's some small venue there, and I'm standing there with my microphones because I had to hold the microphones on my, and of course I was young, so I could do that, and so all of a sudden this guy comes up and says, "Give me those tapes and get the F out of here." And I said, "Look, they let me tape this." And he said, they let us tape it. And he goes, "I'll take you backstage if you like, and they'll tell you they like you to tape." And I said, "Oh, it's just fine
So
here."
that was definitely
Uh,
like '84 after they put the. I mean, it got dark, man.
I don't think it was 84 though, but I don't know what it was. But anyways,
Yeah.
my favorite Jerry shows though, I'll tell you, was 83 um,
Oh God.
at the Berkeley Beverly Hills, I'm sorry, Beverly Hills Theater, I think it's called.
Arlington Theater, I think. Oh no, that was
Uh,
Yeah, no,
yeah, I can't remember, and I haven't yet found a good tape. I tried to get my deck in to those shows, and I got stopped, and I couldn't get them. But no, I never really taped Jerry shows a whole lot. I
Were
just
you? Did you go see? Yeah, Beverly Theater, the Beverly Theater, 31283.
that could have been it.
Yeah, that's
It's
it.
so many years ago,
It
but
doesn't. No, I mean seriously, like that's. I mean, you got. So you were like. Can
I
you
don't think it
talk?
was 312 though. I think it was later because I don't know. Honestly, I can't remember to be honest. I do
The,
remember this.
yeah,
So when I met Michael Turner, um,
yeah.
Hot Tuna and Bobby the Midnights just played at that place in Reseda. That's the freaking loudest Hot Tuna show I've ever seen in my life. My ears were just blasting.
Bring it. Jeez.
And then the next day, I go into the bookstore, and that's when I met Mike. Because I picked up the Grateful Dead, the Book of Deadheads, or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Um, that it was a new book at the time, and we started talking, and it was after the Greek shows because that's I remember we started talking about that, and it was
I'll have to do some digging on that because they only played Beverly Hills once in '83, but we'll figure that out. I mean,
yeah.
um,
I thought they played two. Well, they definitely played two shows. I remember that. It might have been early and late, or 2 days, or it's been so long,
oh yeah, I know. No, did
But
you?
but
So in
but they were
terms,
great shows. I mean, I
yeah,
just remember Jerry just blasting on like "Don't Let Go," and he was totally on fire. So
um, were you? There's just a couple things. How did you account for, so much of there's just so much saturation and weirdness in the early '80s from soundboards. Um, you can you talk, if anything, about well, I mean, like how early were you there to set up? I mean, how did you and did you really know what kind of sound you were getting before the first note of the show? And I can't imagine you were in there for sound check.
no, we weren't in there for sound check. No, we got there pretty early, but like for all the shows that we tape, especially if they were general admission and before the tape receipts, got there early enough. But I don't know, we never really, again, we never really were scientific about it in that sense. Uh, it was more of a, kind of knew, you kind of knew you wanted to be in this zone, right? And basically it was
Where
up
was the
front,
zone? This is so important because, like I
front,
said, the
front,
reason
front and center, as front and center as you could for those microphones. It is what worked. Um,
you were saying you'd say you were about like at the 514 show, maybe 7 rows deep, basically dead.
have you ever been to the Greek?
I climbed over the fence one time, but not, yeah, not
Okay,
at
well,
first.
if you go there now, it's totally changed. But
I
there's
know.
a before the steps come up, the soundboards are in the center where the steps start. Basically, they're up on the steps. But but before the steps come up, there's a and the Greek is a great sounding place because it's cement, right? So the sound just I don't know, it's just even back then, but even now, it's a really great sounding place in many ways, I think. But if you are in the front of the soundboard, right on those, there's a big flat area. There's like a flat area. Nowadays they make it a walkway, but back then I think they just let us hang out there, and
Was it like a
that's
dance
where
floor kind of? It was like a general kind
it's
of like
not really. I mean, it's not really a dance floor. It's not down in the
it's
pit.
not big.
So there's a
Okay.
pit area too,
Okay.
but it's above the pit. It's like the first level, I think, above the pit.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Um, and so you're up above a lot of the crowd, but you're not up in the in the so if you listen to my tape on from 1985, the last show in 1985 over the
616. Yeah.
616, I plugged into some AKGs, but you can still hear and I think Charlie processed my 514 tape too, my 614 tape, um, which is these microphones, and that's probably a better indication. You can hear how they don't really work back there,
Huh.
if that's available, because they're kind of the sound by then has dissipated. These microphones didn't like it, like when they had dissipated like that. But back here the sound was very concentrated. So we just tried to find a place where we knew the sound would just be, really come together, right? So what's a good focal point? That was kind of what we were thinking of when we tried to pull together a place. And then the other thing is we never, we were very careful with our levels. We tried never to, let it go into red, and
Interesting. Interesting.
um, and so and then use metal tapes and all that. So um, that definitely helped, I think, capture the sharpness. But again, it's the microphones really that did the trick. I mean, they just really
Dude,
capture.
they're ridiculous. And I just want to be
Yeah.
clear. This is kind of special because I often ask musicians about the first time that they, back when we had regional radio and nothing was that interconnected. And There wasn't this consolidation of everything. And,
Right.
literally you'd cut a record, maybe, a contemporary records or fantasy records. It could be a jazz record, R&B. And then all of a sudden you're hearing it on the radio somewhere.
Right.
And I'm curious because, I mean, Red Rocks 82, Ginsberg's there, and Lesh is bouncing off, throwing bombs off the walls. And, and it's like, there were a lot of people selling burritos and trading for cassette tapes along the way. And I'm
Right.
just trying to figure out when Rango started to get notoriety, when people were like, "This is ridiculous Greek show." Like, did that happen like almost by the summer of '83?
Yeah. So the interesting thing for me, I feel like, is, and so I was kind of separate from all that. I made tapes with friends, and somehow they got out there, and people circulated them. I never really did a lot of. I had a very good friend of mine. He's still a very good friend of mine, who had great tape connections. So anytime I needed a good tape, I'd go through him, and he'd get tape. He knew, like, Steve Rolfe really well. He was really good friends with him,
Steve
and
Rolfe, yeah, 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 yeah.
and Steve has made some amazing
Dude, that
tapes.
dude,
Yeah,
ridiculous East Coast stuff from Brendan Byrne and stuff. Yeah,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
I mean, the best tape, in my opinion, one of the best tapes in the world is 11579, and and it's one of my favorite shows. It's one of the shows that turned me into a Deadhead. It's like, well,
really. I can. It's
I think
just
I
so
already
hard. It's
was
hard
getting
to
to be a
listen to.
dead.
It's just hard to listen to Don and Keith dying.
I'm sorry.
It's just it's hard for me to listen to Donna and then Keith is basically dying. It's
Well,
like, yeah,
yeah, but they're not really that prominent in that set, in that show. And
that got you
um,
into the dead. Tell me why. I'm interested.
well, I mean, I got into Dead before that,
Sure.
but from my college roommate who, just kind of, my so yeah, I was a big Pink Floyd fan back in college, um, and I lived in this studio apartment with three guys, the three of us, and one guy was a massive Deadhead and acid head.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was I was more of a pothead at the time, and
Nothing wrong
this
with
other
that.
guy,
Yeah.
the other guy was a drinker, and my favorite music at the time was Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here. I think I listened to that every day for
Oh
about a
my
year,
God, seminal.
uh, and uh, and Jim was the Deadhead, and he played the Grateful Dead, and then my other friend John would you know get frustrated with us and put on something else, when it was his turn to put music on. But that's how I got into Dead, because I started listening to this thing. Wow, this is really amazing.
Yeah,
Especially Answer
right.
to the Sun, and Live Dead and all that. And he's like,
Yeah,
wow,
right.
just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
blew my,
sure.
blew my mind. But what was your question?
The question
Oh,
was,
well, so
yeah,
11579.
yeah.
So again, Steve taped it, and my other friend, whose name is Steve, got a immediately got a really great copy of it. Actually, copied onto reel to reel, and we all got takes of that. The thing I love about that show, is there's the Scarlet Fire. I mean, that's what am I saying? Saying I'm starting to lose everything. But there's the not Scarlet Fire. Right here. I was just listening to Scarlet Fire from 2379. That's why I'm thinking of. There was a Miracle into Shakedown, which is one of the most amazing things ever. That transition, right? So that's what I loved about the Dead, was it was one of these moments that never got repeated, but it was incredible when it happened.
Right. They never did a
Um,
miracle shake ever again. Yeah.
well, they may or may not have, but the transition is where it's at. It's Jerry Austin just goes, okay, here we go. And yeah, I mean, you got to listen to it. Go listen to it if you haven't heard it.
Ah,
Yeah, there's a really nice terrapin, really beautiful terrapin. And I think after the terrapin, there's a Donna song. You can skip that. But then the playing the band into drum space, back into playing the band, is some of the most amazing music they've ever done, in my opinion. It's especially the drummers. That's got they're locked in, and they do this incredible drums, back into space kind of thing. It's just a jam, and back into the playing the band. It's just incredible. And Steve was I think he told me he was in the seventh row, or something, taping it, and it's not only an incredible tape, but it um, there's a story where Dick Latvala was selling pot out in Hawaii, and I think Steve told me this once, but can't remember all the details. But Mickey was coming over to buy some pot off Dick, and uh, Dick says, "You got to hear this tape." He was really good friends with Steve Roth, right? So he had just gotten this tape, and you got to hear
Sure.
this tape, and so Steve, Mickey, he sits Mickey down, and Mickey, at the end of that, Mickey goes, "That's the best thing we've ever done." And I'm not, he's not far off. It's incredible,
You're talking about
incredible drum.
115.
115.79. Yes,
where
like
was the
I said,
gig? Where was the gig?
Springfield, Mass.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
okay, so this is really important. I'm not sure. He was more of a Midwest sort of Midwest cat. The only Ralph, I'm glad you brought up Ralph because I must tell you the Brendan Burns show. I interviewed John Shearer at that, and right at that time, that was basically a state of the art venue for acoustics. And it's funny because it turned into this basketball arena. But
Hmm. Yeah.
the 41783 Rolf Odd is primordial. I mean, Lesh, I believe, had the Olympic at that point and was just, I mean, shaking the entire foundation. There's a guy I wanted to ask you about. Last name, his first name Tommy, last name McKeow, Mckeow. Does that name ring a bell?
Not really.
So
No.
this might be the same. I have to apologize. I'm a neophyte with tech, but this might be
Yeah.
the same. The sources he used: Sony D5 Sennheiser, two ME80s, and two 441s, 12th row center, Harrisburg
Oh.
83 in Indianapolis. How similar
Hmm.
was that to your rig?
Well, not similar at all. I just had those two Sony mics. That was it.
Jesus.
Uh, so yeah, not similar at all. Yeah, no, and that's one of the reasons I actually started backing away from taping after a while because, you know, I had, in 87 was the last shows I taped in Providence, and then I got married and kids and everything, and things
Sure.
changed.
Yeah.
Didn't go see a lot of shows after, but and as you said in the 90s, by the 90s,
Nah.
there's the scene and the band were, starting. I mean, there were some great shows, but I just didn't have time. I had infants and all that. But um, no, yeah, it's yeah, I don't know.
I want to go back to the question. I don't think I actually we just moved off of the topic, but do you like those Frost shows or those Greek shows? Do you remember because you were talking about getting you had great tape connections, but do you remember the first time someone was like, or you were like, they're like, yo, this is incredible tape, man, and you're like, Dad, that was my recording.
Um, again, back then, remember, we didn't have
There
the
was no
internet,
internet. That's what I'm saying. It was
right?
magical.
So I think it was only until after the internet started coming around. And it's funny as how heck now because my kids are the ones who kind of really um yeah uh brought it to my attention.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I think people had reached out to me, telling me about my tapes and all, but if you Google my name, you get all these Reddit links and all that about
sure,
how
sure.
great my tapes are, and so my kids got a big kick out of it. They still do. And I remember my son when he was in college, he calls me up one day and he goes, "Dad, I've been blasting your tapes, and man, they sound great." And I said, I mean, I played it to you all your life, but he,
Yeah,
he
but
just
then
it
it gets onto the World Wide Web. I love it because my girls, it's the same thing, where, my older daughter's at Princeton now, and they'll put up a photo of on the big screen, and they'll say, who is that? And she's like, oh, that's Jerry Garcia. Like
yeah,
they love that sort of cycle. It's so important. But
yeah,
like back, so
yeah,
you're basically saying that like you would let some like that those tapes would go into the ether, but
right.
it wasn't like 514. It wasn't like you were aware that other cats had your source or
No, not really. No, people would approach me at shows. Hey, can you make me copies? And I'd make them a copy. But see, gotta remember, I didn't have the fancy setup, right? I had these two very plain looking Sony mics. Other people had AKGs and Sennheisers and whatnot. So I wouldn't get hit up a whole lot about them, you know.
Were
Um,
you and your brother-in-law, so you had each, was it always one mic on your hat and one mic on his hat, or was that, I mean, how
well,
did
no,
that,
that was only the first few
San
shows, and
Diego? Yeah, yeah,
yeah, San
yeah.
Diego, and that was yeah that guy was actually not my he's not my brother-in-law. He's a really good friend,
Good friend,
college
yeah,
friend of mine, but he
yeah.
still is. But uh,
So it
after
was just basically two mics
yeah,
your ball
yeah,
cap.
just
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
This is
just
so beyond.
yeah.
I mean, some of the, and so you never, outside of your time in New England, you never really, after you moved to the West Coast, aside from going up to the Bay, you didn't go anywhere else to see the band per se.
Well, yeah, I mean the furthest I've ever gone was went to Arizona, Vegas, and Irvine.
Oh my,
The one
wait,
time,
slow, hold down for a second here. You're talking March
83.
83, March 83?
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay, have you ever
those.
released your copies? Because I don't like any of those recordings, and I don't remember seeing your
Well,
name on
yeah, they didn't come out good.
it. Yeah,
83. Well, so the Irvine show I actually patched into a Sennheiser 40, whatever they were.
yeah.
And I don't know if Charlie took those tapes or not. I gotta look up on the internet. I don't think he did, but he might have. Um,
No, if there was a Rango on those
but
Vegas,
it wasn't my microphones. It was
right?
Sennheiser. So
It didn't come
yeah.
across. Yeah.
But the Irvine, the Aladdin shows, we were way up in the rafters, and they weren't letting us tape, so I had to pretty much hide my microphone, just barely seat
Jesus.
level. They come out terrible. And then the Irvine show, same thing. I mean, we got the decks in, no problem. But we were way up in somewhere, and they were just so bad. It's like I don't go and listen to them again, honestly, because
Right. No, I did.
you
I
know,
do. Believe me. There are. Um, did you recognize? And I'm talking pre-coma. That was the other thing I had to ask you.
yeah.
Uh, the I didn't realize you were all over 331/84.
Oh yeah,
And
you got it. That's one of my favorite tapes,
well,
honestly.
no, I
That's a
mean, I think
great show.
didn't they do like an acoustic "Oh Babe It Ain't No Lie," or maybe that was the night before or something. I don't remember.
That may have been a couple nights before.
Yeah.
So 328. I was going to tape. I was up second row. No, yeah, 328 was the first show. I was up in the second row or something. I got somehow great seats for all the six Marin shows. I don't know how I did it, but it was all mail order, and I somehow all my Bay Area friends are pissed off at me because I got crazy seats for them.
Yeah, because
But
they were like, yo, that's the cat. He's the
yeah, I
big.
was living in LA at the time. But anyway, my 328. I was going to tape. And I had all my stuff in there, and the 83 shows they didn't let you bring the stuff in. I couldn't get my stuff in, but the 84 shows they started letting people bring their stuff in, no problem. So they were starting to get ready for having a taper section, right?
Right.
So they were loosening up on letting people bring their decks in and everything. Um, so 328, I think that's a show. It must have been the show. I got all my stuff laid down, ready to set up, and this biker guy sits next to me. And maybe I was stoned or maybe not, but I could swear I heard him say, "I'm gonna beat the shit out of that guy if he puts his tape deck up." And
Oh
I just
my.
looked at my brother and I said, "I'm not putting my tape deck up,"
I want to be.
because
This is so important. No, and I'm sorry that happened, but I want to be clear because it's so amazing for someone who has, it was about 20 years of analog world for Jake Feinberg, but for my daughters and all this polarization and insanity that's going on, you're
yeah.
telling me that the Hell's Angels presence at Dead shows was still palpable in 83, 84.
Oh yeah, there were bikers all over the place, and I remember walking out of the Marin shows in I think it was October, the Halloween show,
The
and
83 ones, yeah.
there's this whole row of Harley sitting there, with the Hells Angels hanging out. Um,
Holy.
yeah. You just didn't want to mess with those guys.
But
I mean,
they weren't doing security at that time or anything.
no. They weren't doing anything like that. They were just there.
Right. Okay. No, because I
Yeah.
remember right before or right around the beginning of Rango Keshavan's taping career, they a month after San Diego, they were up at UC Davis, and an amazing show actually. Jerry breaks a string. It's one of the only times I've ever heard Brent have to take a solo on Fire. But the security was the fraternities up there. It was rough, man. I
Right.
mean, they were
Oh,
not. It was a bizarre. So I want to be clear though. You couldn't get your rigs in for '83, but '84, the other. I mean, to me, the did you get a nice tape out of April Fool's '84?
so yeah, so for 331 we getting back 328 I didn't tape because of that.
Right.
329 I dosed, so I didn't tape. And it was a great, it was, I was in the fourth row, or
Nice venue. I've
even
never been to that venue. Is it
oh,
nice?
it's an
Yeah.
incredible venue. It's
Yeah.
we went there a couple of years ago. I hadn't been. I actually was before I met my wife. I was dating somebody else who lived right behind it, and I was just hanging around, but I never went inside it again.
Oh,
And then
dude, you
I
have lived the most tripped out freaking life, dude. I love this shit.
then a couple of years ago, my wife and I went to see my current wife and I went to see um, this really cool band playing the White Album at the Marin Civic Center, and it was fantastic, to me it was a homecoming. It was like, oh my God, because
So
I had
beautiful,
seen
man. So
I had
beautiful.
six shows there, and so at the end of the show we were sitting in the back, and in the show I said I got to go stand up in the front, and it just felt like being there again. So 329 I didn't tape, and then
Right.
331 I ended up making, I think, a great tape. It's a great tape, and it's also um, it was one of my favorite shows because there's the second set has this Scarlet Fire, which just to me as a transition out of the Scarlet, they start deconstructing everything, and then there's a moment where they pull everything back together and goes into fire, and
Well,
it's
you
to me
know
that's
why? I
brilliant.
also want to say there's some Mickey started using a talking drum at that time.
Yeah,
There-
yeah, you can hear it a lot
yeah, yeah.
in those shows, and
Uh,
then the more and then I think there's a Man Smart, and then there's a great He's Gone with a lot of effects at the end of He's Gone, and then there's a the drum space, Throne Stone. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of songs, but it's a lot of jammed out stuff. So it's full 90 minutes. I think it's Drum Space, Throwing Stones, Not Fade Away. Um, and the Throwing Stones is the first Throwing Stones that I heard. I don't know if it's the first one they did with where they changed the lyrics a little bit on it. Because if
Interesting.
you in the earlier versions, Throwing Stones made a great impact on me actually in '82 when I heard it first.
You heard it
It
when because they played it in Portland, maybe, but you where
Well, I heard the first time I heard it was at the Frost.
the Frost,
Uh,
yeah, man,
so
totally, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it really
Those
really made it.
early Throwing Stones were sick.
Yeah, and it made an impact on me. I mean, you got Reagan's time, you got nuclear threat ramped up again, and it was a whole different era back then. It was kind of dark. It's starting to get dark.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's dark now too with this, but I'm trying to avoid the news these days. But um,
I mean, we had never experienced anything up to that point. I mean, it was essentially rational. I mean, Carter got a raw deal, but we were still
Well,
living.
I mean, for me, you had the Vietnam. I grew up with the Vietnam War. The news every day. And then you had that period of time with where Carter was trying to with it was a transition, and then Reagan comes in. And holy crap,
Yeah, man, it just
the
went all the goodwill and like public service sectors and all
yeah
the endowments and art
yeah
and money. It got all, and
yeah
then obviously he lowered the tax base for it. But the
right
point is that the Stones, there's a Burlington '83 Stones that really got me similar to your Frost shows, where it's not the recording, but just the band is really cooking that tune hard,
yeah
you know.
yeah. I mean, it's a great song, and '84. That I think that was the first time they started changing the lyrics. So I really like the way it was done. And then and a beautiful. It's all over now, Baby Blue to end the show. So it's a great show. I really recommend that show.
Were you dosing on April? I'm going to hit that immediately. Were you
I
dosing on
I
April
no,
Fool's?
I dosed on 329, but then I
Right.
didn't on 331 and 41. But 41, what we did was my brother-in-law and I decided we wanted to try these different set of mics. Um, we like a single point stereo mic. I mean, a single mic stereo condenser. I can't remember. It was some kind of Sony mic, I think. So we just plugged into those, and I don't know. I think our tapes came out okay. I think it's under his name though. His name is Mike Kirshner. Mike, you can look him
Yeah, I
up.
never liked
Okay,
that. I never liked that stuff.
but his some of his tapes are great. Like the Providence '82 tape is a great tape that he made.
I'll
He
have to
he
check
actually
that. You'll have to hit me to that. I'm going to hit me to
he
these Macau tapes because they're
yeah.
as close to Rango as I've ever heard. I
Well,
just, you know what it
his
is.
Providence '82 tape, he got busted, and then so he lost his first set, but the second set is really he bought the same mics that I had after he heard the San Diego shows, and the the show it's a brilliant show. The second
415,
set,
right? 415, right?
yeah, I never
Yeah.
remember the date, but I think you're right.
I'm
And
wondering if
and
he went
there's
to Glen Falls and stuff too.
no, he didn't do
Yeah,
that. He went to
yeah.
Hartford, and then that's it.
Oh,
But
he went to
the
those Hartford shows. That's where Phil was ripping that Edgar Allan Poe poetry.
right, yes,
Yeah.
but the really cool thing about 41582 on his tape is when Jerry hits the notes for Morning Dew, this guy goes, "Oh my God!" That's great. Yeah,
Hey, Rango,
it's
listen, we got to do set two, but I just want to end set one with this question because part about the 70s, I agree with you. We talk about that 79 show very articulately, and you go back to 73 and 74 solo drummer, and it's just this beautiful sort of, Jerry's not forcing anything, and it's perfection, and it just everything is flowing, and Billy's just, everything's perfect.
right.
And by the early 80s, you lived for drum space, wheel, play and reprise Morning Dew from the Greek. I mean, or whatever. I mean, that would make my day. It was a little
Right.
bit more uneven. But I'm just
Well,
asking you as a person, this is really important. As a
yeah,
person,
yeah.
there was no social media, newspapers, CDs were barely coming on board. But in terms
Mm.
of like visually, did you know by April 84 that Garcia should have been dead?
Oh, yeah, you could see it. I mean, come on, you could see it. I think the Greek '83s even, you could see Jerry. Something changed. Like I said, October,
You nailed it,
between
dude.
the
You nailed it. 82
between the frost, between the
yeah,
frost and the
yeah,
yeah, and then the New Year's Eve shows, you definitely notice, okay, there's something going on here. And
yeah.
I mean, we all kind of knew that he was doing what he was doing, but that's when you started really seeing it affect him. And '83, you definitely started seeing it more and more. '84, I mean, God, I went to a Jerry show up in I had moved back east by then, and I went to a Jerry show up in New Hampshire. Um, and
Oh my God, you went to that
and
freaking coolest the club casino?
yeah, Club Casino.
Oh
Yeah, I
my
mean,
God, with Kessler, did you get a little
yeah, I
outdoor?
might have, you might have called the Reseda Club Casino. I can't remember, but whatever it is, I think that was a Club Casino, and great seats, of course. Great venue. We were sitting right there watching the show, and I had actually dosed a couple days before, so I was still kind of buzzing. And I'd taken my sisters up with me, and and they weren't real. I mean, they were kind of into it, but they weren't really into it
Dude,
yet.
Jerry was in horrible
And,
shape.
and he just felt so sad. And I remember him taking a really long break and coming back, and the songs that had no. I mean, people have tried to get me to listen to those tapes again, and I didn't tape it, but people tried to get me to listen to tapes again, and I just I don't see
Rango,
it.
I got to tell you, man, I just want to tell you, it's just, you know, I just wasn't, I'm always in my head wondering, like, were there rumblings about like his
There
deterioration?
were there
But
there was
I got to be honest
massive
with you. I want you
rumblings.
to have
Yeah.
faith in that August tour because maybe those shows are good. Actually, he did a Knocking on Heaven's Door from Club Casino. That's out commercially. That's how good
Hmm.
it is. He
Right. Maybe
held, yeah. And then
I'll have
also,
to look it up again.
he's
But then, I remember sitting in '85, we were talking about how much longer he's going to be around. And I think we actually, at the Greek, we were talking about it, and I think we nailed it. We said
10
maybe
years.
10 years. And
Well,
you knew that.
the show I want you to check out from that '84 summer tour is Goodscape's roller rink, which was about 5 minutes from where I grew up. I was a mere 6 years old. No air conditioning. About 6 days after, absolutely burning. I
Oh,
got listen, man. It has been so cathartic. I hope you had a good time. Let's do this again
yeah,
because I got to
yeah,
hop.
definitely.
All right.
Absolutely. Thanks
Yeah.
for doing this. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was fun.
man. Good hang,
All right.
man. All right. Be
Have a good
cool.
day. Yep.
Later.